pretty as a picture. Ah! Zombies! There, pretty as a picture.
By the time I ditched my tenacious 20s for the lower back pain of my 30s, I felt like some of the things I once held dear had started to lose their shine. One such victim of my aging malaise was zombie fiction. Mars zombies, sheep zombies, Cockney zombies, French zombies, stop-motion zombies, found footage zombies, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, stripper zombies. I'd seen them live, die, and get back up again so many times that for every Dawn or Sean, there were a million lumbering yawns of the dead reaching out for the lowest hanging fruit.
See you on hell, boys.
So, by the time World War Z came caterwauling, it felt like the inevitable maximalist evolution of what George Romero started way back in 1968. A slow-moving subgenre given the $200 million tentpole treatment. Having heard the uneasy industry rumblings of a troubled film production blur and blend with the unqualified praise of the epistolary novel from whence it came, I was cautiously curious. After leaving the theatre, I was... I liked this bit. The ending was rubbish. Blah 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 blah. Smash cut to 2022. And having now read the excellent source material, scoured over the solid scripts that never made it to the screen, and rewatched the main event, let's just say there's a lot to discuss about what became of Brad Pitt's big bite of the undead apple.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
World War Z sees former United Nations investigator Jerry Lane scouring the globe in search of an answer for the unthinkable, an apocalyptic zombie outbreak that threatens his family and the fate of the entire human race. Max Brooks' 2006 novel of the same name is a meticulously researched, theoretically grounded oral history of an unquantifiable disaster, a sprawling dossier of varied recollections that examines free market economics, cultural disconnect, governmental incompetence, morality as a social construct, and the long reach of an ecological cataclysm.
Zombie movies are essentially disaster movies. And I think there has been a sense from 9/11 on that the system is breaking down.
The novel's intercontinental interview-based structure reinforces its central message. You cannot truly understand or overcome the global ramifications of an axis-shifting calamity by filtering it through the eyes of an individual. So it's strange to find that the movie is more of a travel blog than an impartially curated historical record, wherein everything is witnessed through a myopic, Anglo-American lens. Rather than peeling away at the dangers of isolationism and urging open channels of informed global collaboration, World War Z the movie celebrates the lone wolf attitude that the book specifically condemns, which isn't to say that this film has an ethos of any kind. While nominally based on an intellectually rich book, and the product of a subgenre whose holy trinity runs the allegorical gamut of racial tensions, unchecked consumerism, and the nihilistic collapse of Cold War militarism, this adaptation isn't actually about anything. When I say adaptation, take it with a grain of salt the size of Brett Kavanaugh's booze cabinet. Out with the title and one solitary sequence, this feature has about as much in common with Max Brooks' novel as Neil Gorsuch has in common with A Decent Person. Now, I'm not above taking something and making it your own, mindless action or ideologically empty entertainment. Just so long as there's enough narrative escalation and characterization to lead me from the title card to the end credits. And this has neither.
You all read the same email I did, and it said zombies.
From the get-go, there's no build-up, no groundswell of panic. Just Brad Pitt making breakfast for his one-dimensional family.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Then a bloodless bloodbath on the streets of Glasgow. Sorry, Philadelphia. Yep, this action scene is definitely in America, and not a Scottish commuter hub where I frequently witness weekend wasters pissing into their own hands.
This idiot. It's a one-way street. Wrong way, down a one-way street.
The pacing is so roided out that we go from maxing and relaxing to more than a little trouble in the neighbourhood faster than you can say Clarence Thomas is a piece of shit. This 0 to 60 approach has its advantages, eschewing a methodical reveal and highlighting the ill-prepared, sudden shock with scrambling, disorienting havoc. Unfortunately, by coming out of the gate at full sprint, it's impossible to maintain or match that momentum all the way through, meaning that World War Z drops dead of exhaustion 40 minutes before the finish line. For a film that starts loud, twists the knob to 11, then blows out the speakers with this glorious pandemonium, to bow out on a quiet stroll through a Welsh office is the antithesis of dramatic escalation. If your third act is a brake-stomping slog rather than the peak of a dizzying ramp, you've fundamentally misunderstood story structure. Just another victim of 11th hour reshoots, studio indecision, and a director best known for being extremely boring.
I heard that.
You were meant to.
So what of the world in World War Z? The United States is one traffic jam and a tower block, South Korea is an aircraft hangar in the dead of night, the UN task force and last best hope for humanity is a bunk bed on a boat and an admin area, thus making it our trek around the planet feel like a whistle-stop tour through half a dozen sound stages and 2 set pieces, with this unflavoured snow cone as our guide.
Just a walk in the park.
How do we know they're coming?
They're coming.
Jerry, who may as well be called generic for all the depth and detail he's given as our hero.
Bullshit.
Now, generic Jerry could have worked. Had this maintained the episodic, interview-based layout of the novel, or the first draft of the screenplay pitched to Paramount. Think of the kaleidoscopic, interwoven construction from multiple perspectives of Contagion or Babel, mixed with the boots-on-the-ground grime of The Last of Us.
That's good.
And that's what this was all going to look like before Paramount decided to remove all the World War Z from their World War Z movie.
That's bad.
Which makes it hard not to blame the potluck pacing and absent characterization on studio fuckery.
Can I go now?
For the record, it's worth stating that rewrites and reshoots have been a routine part of cinema since the birth of the medium. They're usually done for the sake of clarification or coverage, and no studio is going to intentionally piss cash down the drain in the hopes of making their product worse. That being said, outside of Solo, Fantastic Four, and Justice League, the bigwigs rarely toss over a third of their feature in the trash and take a mulligan. But that's just what WWZ did.
The problem with most people is that they don't believe something can happen until it already has. It's not stupidity or weakness, it's just human nature.
I'll post a link in the description below that sums up the third act as it was originally shot, an ultra-violent battle in Moscow's Red Square, and why it was erased and replaced. Needless to say, Paramount's attempt to appease the Chinese and Russian markets, whilst not ending their 9-figure tentpole on a dejected bummer, didn't pay off in the final product. There's no getting around that this is a blatantly compromised, chopped and screwed salad of old and new footage.
Hello, Director Mark Forster. It's me, Paramount Taylor Tequila, the properly large unit in charge of the fucking studio.
Hi, Mr. Tequila. What can I do for you?
Well, sunshine, see that emaciated skirmish you're filming with Meet Joe Black? We're sending a lorry round later to fetch the world building, depth, the final act, and Matthew Fox's entire character, so we can chuck 'em in the shit pit right next to Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Wait, you're gonna toss out over a third of the movie?
Just plug the holes in it with some picky zombies that don't nosh down on some sick bastards, and film the third act in an empty call centre or something.
Why? So, if the structurally weakened substance doesn't stand up to scrutiny, then what of the spectacle? Well, this is where a blockbuster budget comes in handy, and it's inarguably World War Z's greatest strength. Zombies represent a fear of mob mentality, of dehumanization, stripping away all forms of human prejudice and indiscriminately boiling our humanity, hopes, and hatred down to the meat on our bones. By rendering the undead as a tidal wave of inevitable destruction rather than singular stumbling entities, this film is able to articulate these anxieties on a scope and scale more akin to a Roland Emmerich Explodathon than a typical Undead-ageddon. As a fast-moving swarm that crashes and consumes like a clumsy tsunami of decay, their depiction as a fluid pestilence isn't just a new flavour in a familiar recipe. They make this one of the only films to truly encapsulate the definition of total war. A conflict unrestricted in terms of the weapons used, the territory involved, or the objectives pursued. A war in which accepted rules are cast aside, and every person on the planet is deemed a combatant. It's a sobering notion, and one that's expertly captured in this film's centerpiece, the Jerusalem sequence. For one thing, it's the only stretch of WWZ to make extensive use of Brooks' source material. From the 10th Man Doctrine, to the towering walls and failures of old methodologies to conquer a new threat. Then there's the bustling build, tipping point, and chaotic collapse, as the undead clamber, climb, and eventually cascade over the walls. It's vibrant, expansive, anarchic. and potentially even subversive. On the one hand, it shows the oh-so-charitable Israeli government welcoming Palestinians in, and this live and let live unification being both of their downfall. This is a Western film that shows stolen Palestinian land, walled off and used to quarantine Muslims, only to be consumed and reclaimed by a force that IDF and Israeli government seek to vilify, manipulate, displace, and destroy.
Well, if you put like that, I'd be skeptical as well.
While I spent a lot of this video going over the numerous problems with World War Z, I do think it's important to highlight the positives, because I truly don't think this is any worse than most summer spectacles. While WWZ struggles when viewed as a whole, on a scene-by-scene, shot-by-shot basis, there's quite a lot to appreciate. Jerry making bite-proof armour out of duct tape and magazines, a dereliction of duty as this cop bags up baby food while society falls to disorder, Ruth Negga who's good in everything. Then there's this chilling moment that could have come straight from the book, where David Morse's CIA spook describes North Korea's solution to the zombie problem.
They pulled the teeth of all 23 million in less than 24 hours. Greatest feat of social engineering in history.
If only the genuinely brilliant moments were the rule rather than the exception. This could have been something special. Instead, it's just fine.
2, 3, 4.
Reanimators, Frankenhookers, 28 Days Laters, and Planet Terrors. There's a lot of life in the living dead if you're willing to push past the shuffling masses. World War Z has plenty of flaws, with its faults outweighing what works by at least 2 to 1, but I'm still glad it exists. Sure, a sensible, serious take on the book shot and stretched out over a Ken Burns-style documentary series would have been ideal. Yes, the radically different original screenplay was infinitely better. Yeah, I would have preferred the original wintry Russian ending over this interminable Welsh snooze, but I can't bring myself to totally write off what we ended up with. It's too bold, too big, and too speckled with potential to label it as an abject failure. Instead, World War Z is a shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of film. It should have been better. It would go on to inspire infinitely better films like Train to Busan, and it could have been worse. As for whether or not these are saving graces or taunting moments of good in a slurry of senselessness, I'm gonna be optimistic and say the former.
Oh my God.
I'll take a Brad Pitt swing and a miss over the usual dregs of Marvel mediocrity or DC drudgery any day of the week. A return of the living dead for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becchio, Scared Confusion, and Nicholas Le Revere. Fuck the Supreme Court of the United States, and a massive thank you to all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. So what do you make of World War Z? Have you read the book? And how do you think the film works as a standalone thing, given that it's barely related to the source material? Let us know down in the comments where you can find my list of my 10 favourite zombie movies. The best way to help this channel is to like, leave a comment and subscribe, and share these videos on Twitter, Reddit, or just with your friends. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below, where you can sign up to the Infame Out Film Club, our private Discord, and get your name in the end credits of each video. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, This is in Frame Out.